Hey, what's up? Good morning. I hope you're having a good day. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name is Don. My channel exists to help those who are trying to learn how to code by offering tutorial videos and different resources. In this video today, we're going to create a a contact application. We're going to be using tkinter. We're going to be using Python as our source code or our language that we're going to be writing our source code in, and we will be using Visual Studio Code Editor. This is a great video for those who are trying to get the fundamentals down of functions, labels, buttons, things of that nature. For those of you who do not know, tkinter is a library that allows us to create a graphical user interface for our program. So we will begin very soon. Before we begin, I figured with my videos that I make, I'm going to start recommending videos that I've read and videos that will help, or videos that I've read, books that I have read, and books that will help you along your journey. One of those books is Data Wrangler with Python. This is a great book that covers syntax, pretty much the fundamentals of Python, booleans, if-else statements, covers APIs, all those different things. This book is by Jacqueline Kazil and Catherine Jarmil. And forgive me if I butchered those names, but it's a really good book. So I will see you in the tutorial. All right, let's begin. Once again, this tutorial we will be making a contact application that allows us to store our contacts. We will be using Python, or we will be writing our source code in Python, and we will be using the library tkinter. And the code editor I'll be using is Visual Studio Code. If you do not have Visual Studio Code, you can simply type in Visual Studio Code download, and just make sure that you select the download for whatever type of computer that you're using. It'll give you these different options. Okay, let's begin. So first things first, we want to create our folder. This is where we will be storing our project. File is in this folder. We're going to name this folder Contact App. After you've done that, go to your Visual Studio Code or go to your code editor that you're using. You're going to hit File, Open Folder, and you're going to select Contact App. And what this is doing right now is you're selecting this folder to be the directory that your files will flow out of. Now that we have that set up, we now want to go to our terminal. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a virtual environment. This allows us to isolate everything pertaining to this program in that environment. This is great for security purposes and for sharing the source code with other developers as well. So I'm using a Windows computer, so the command might be different for you if you're using a Mac or a different computer that's not Windows. So if it is different, if you're using a different computer, all you have to do is just Google search how to create a virtual environment, or what's the command in Visual Studio Code to create a virtual environment, and then put the computer that you're using. So it's going to be Python -m vim and then my-env. My-env is my environment. Now, as you see here, it opens up our folder, our environment, and gives us these different folders. You got to include lib for library scripts, and then you have pyvim.cfg. Down here, we're waiting in our terminal to catch up. Once our terminal is caught up, we need to now activate the terminal. Or activate the terminal. We need to activate the virtual environment, and we do that by saying sorry about that. Sometimes it takes a few seconds for my computer to catch up. Let's see, there we go. My env, we're going to go /, you're going to do capital S for scripts, /activate. And once you have, it says my env at the bottom, that lets you know that the environment is now activated and we can start developing in that environment. Now we want to create a file, and we're going to call this file, first we need to select it, Python as the file. We are going to file, save as, and you can just call this, go in your environment and just save under your environment, just say contact.py. And then hit save. It's always a good practice to make sure the type of file that you're using, that you save it as that file. For example, we're using Python, so it's custom to say, your file name .py. Same with JavaScript, you would do your name.js, things of that nature. Okay, now that we have this set up, now we're going to import tkinter as tk. And we're going to say from tkinter, we're going to import message box. Now that we have that set up, we are now going to create a class. And pretty much a class is an object that in that class we can assign different attributes to that object. For example, you could have a car as the object, and then the different classes could be a BMW, a Mercedes, things of that nature, or different attributes of that car. For example, like colors, features, things like that. So we want to say class. We're going to name this contact book app. Make sure you put that colon. We're going to define it. I'm going to define init, which means initiate, and we're going to say self root colon. And it's always important whenever you're creating a class, you're always going to use self as the first, the first thing you're going to do. So we'll say self.root equals root. We will say self.root title, and then we will name our title or our application, which will be contact book. And then finally, we will say self.contacts equals brackets, curly brackets. Okay, 1 second. I just want to double check some real quick. It's always good to, I'm starting to do this more. Each little section of code that you do, you should go over it, make sure there's no grammar or syntax errors. It's a lot easier to fix it that way than going through the whole file and then, or the whole program, and then having to go all the way back. So I have self.root equals root, self.root.title contact book, self.contacts equals, and then we're going to say self.create widgets. I'm going to curly brackets. See. I don't know why this colon is here. Invalid syntax error. Class contact book app, define init self.root. Maybe it will go away once we finish typing out the program. If not, we will deal with that then. Sometimes that happens. It gives a red flag because the code isn't finished, so it's saying there's something that's incomplete or invalid syntax. Now we're going to define our widgets function. We're going to say self, do a colon, and we're going to say, now we're going to create the label name, which is self.label name equals tk label to root, or self.root text, and then we're going to equal name. So right now we are defining the label where we're going to be able to put the contact's name into the program. Next, we're going to say self.label_name equals, name.grid. We are now going to create our grid, and which is going to have the rows and the columns set up for where we want the name to appear. So we're going to say row equals 0, column equals 0, and say pad x equals 5, and I'm going to say pad y equals 5. Okay, let's go over our code real quick to make sure no spelling errors. Self.label_name equals tk.label, self.root text equals name. Yep, looks like everything's good. Now we're going to move on to the we're going to do self.entry name. Self.entry name equals tk capital E, tk.entry, if I could type entry, I'm going to say self.root. We're going to say we're now that we have the entry where we can enter our name, now we're going to set up once again the grid for that. So we're going to say self.entry _name grid, and we're going to say row equals 0, comma, and then we're going to say column equals 1, comma, pad x equals 5, comma, pad y equals 5. Now that we have this set up, now we're going to move on to our next label, which is going to be setting up the phone, where it's going to allow us to set up the phone number, things like that. So self.label phone equals tk.label self root, comma, text equals phone. I'm going to say self.label phone grid row equals 1, column equals 0, comma, pad x equals 5, pad y equals 5. Now that we have that set up, we are now we're going to move on to where we want the phone to appear in the grid. Because we created the label phone, now we're creating where when we do put the phone number in, where we want the phone number to appear on the grid. So we're going to say self.entry phone equals tk entry self.root. I'm going to say self.root or entry underscore phone dot grid row equals 1, comma, column equals 1, pad x equals 5, comma, pad y equals 5. And pretty much this is going to be pretty much a lot of just doing repeating the same process just in different parts of the function for different attributes we're trying to add. So bear with me. Now that we have that set up, we're going to set up our add contact button. So we're going to say self.button underscore add equals tk button self root comma text equals add contact comma, and I'm going to say command equals self dot add underscore contact. And we're going to go over that real quick. So what we're doing right now is that we are creating the button for add contact on the graphical user interface. We see that with self.button underscore add, it's a TK button. The text will say add contact, and when the person or the user clicks that button, the command will add the contact that they have, the information that they have given. Now we're going to set where we want the button to appear in the grid. Just going to say add.grid. We're going to say row equals 2, comma, column equals 0, comma, column span equals 2, comma, we'll say pad x, we'll give it pad x equals to 5 pixels. I'm going to say pad y equals 10. And now we are going to move on to creating our list box, the actual box where all this information will appear. So we're going to say self.listBox equals tk listbox self root select mode equals tk.single. And you see, this is what's so cool about tkinter. Like, once you get the fundamentals down, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Self.button add, you're always going to start off with the root. You're going to put your text in whatever you want it to appear on the button, and then you're going to give the command. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Once you get the fundamentals down, you will be a-okay. So we're going to say self.listBox. Now that we have the list box set up, now we want to set it up in the grid how we want it to appear. So row 3, column equals 0, column span equals 2, pad x equals 5 pixels, pad y equals 5 pixels. We're going to go over here, go to File, Save. And now that we have that set up, our list box, now we're going to go to our button view, and we're going to say, this is going to create the button that allows us to view our contacts. So once we have our contacts set up in the program or in the graphical user interface, if we want to actually view the contacts, we will hit the click view contacts button, which will activate the command to view contacts. So that's what we're setting up now. So we're going to say self.button underscore view. Let's say tk button self root text equals, and we're going to have it display on the button view contacts, and we're going to give the command now. The command equals self dot view contact. So when the user pushes the or clicks the button, then it will allow them to view the contacts. And now we're going to set up where we want that button to appear on the grid. So we're going to say self.button underscore view equals grid row equals 4, column equals 0, column span equals 2, pad x equals 5, pad y equals 10. And we're going to go to File, and we're going to hit Save, just to make sure if anything happens, we don't lose our source code. So now that we have that set up, we will now create the add contacts function. And first thing we need to do is we have to define that function. And we define that function by once again typing in define add underscore contact self colon. I'm going to say name equals self dot entry underscore name dot get. We're then going to say phone equals self dot entry underscore phone dot get. Now that we define that function, we're going to move on to our now if-else statements. Long story short, if-else statements pretty much control the flow of how the program is going to go. For example, with the if statement, if this condition is met, then the program will go this route. Else, if the if statement is not met, it will go the else route, which will take the program and off of the if course, and it will go through the else route. So as long as in the if statement, as long as the information remains true to the program how it's supposed to run, then it will flow that way. But the moment that becomes not true, then it will go the else route. So we're going to say if name say let's see, one second, I need to check something real quick. Sorry about that. Just want to make sure everything is set up right. We are good, but I'm going to move this over, this block of code. Okay, now we are going to set up our if-else statement. So we're going to say if name and phone colon self dot contacts name equals phone self dot entry underscore name delete tk dot end self dot entry phone delete 0 tk dot end. And I'll explain this as soon as we're done. Once I get this all set up, then we're going to say message box show info. We're going to say success. Contact added successfully. So if the name and the phone number is placed incorrectly, then it will display the success contact added success contact added successfully. I can't speak today. Now that we have our if statement set up, now we're going to move on to the else statement. If the else or if the if statement is not fulfilled, then it will go the else route, which will say message box show warning. And so this is saying if they do not put a valid contact or phone number in, contact name or phone number, then it will display an error on the screen, and we'll say, please enter name and phone number. Enter name and phone number. So if they do not enter anything, then it will display this error message. And now that we have that set up, we will now define the last part of our last function, our main we will now define the view contacts function on the program. So we're going to say define view contacts self. Let's say self.list box delete. I'm going to say 0 tk end. I'm going to say if self.contacts for name, phone, and self contacts items self list box insert tk end. And we're going to use the F string format. We're going to say name colon phone. So what we're doing right now for the if statement, we're saying if the person clicks on the view contacts button, then it should display the name and phone number for what they entered into the program. Now we're going to move on to the else statement, which is message and message box show info, and we'll say empty. There are no contacts found. So if there is no contacts in the program saved and they hit the view contacts button, then it will display the message saying empty, there are no contacts found. And now that we have that set up, we will finally end this program with our main loop setup. So we're going to say if name equals loop or equals main, we'll say root equals tk enter. We'll say app equals contact book app root. And now we're gonna have our main loop, which will keep the program going as long as the conditions are met. And then we'll hit file, save. Now let's run this and see what it looks like. Okay, let's go back to line 5. Let's see, what did we do wrong? I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know why that is an issue. It should not be an issue. Let's see. Define, and then here, let's rewrite this. Sometimes it probably is because there was no space. Self, there we go. Self root. There we go. Yep. It's because there was a no space right here, so it was all this was connected. So now that we have that set up, it should not be an issue. We'll go down here and clear the terminal error or the error in the terminal box, and now we'll hit play. Okay, line 10. It says self.widgets. Let's see. What did I do wrong here? Oh, duh, my bad. It shouldn't be squiggly line parentheses. It should be normal ones. Let file save. See line 49. Let's take a look. That's what's good about these terminals. Like if there's a syntax problem or error, it will let you know pretty much where it's at in the box. So that's very convenient. So let's see. For name, phone, and self.context says for name, phone, and self.context.items expected : File save, and then let's see. Line 50, self.listbox. Oh, wasn't in the right block. There we go. And then file save. Then let's run it. And then tkinter. Module has no attributes. Single. Line 28. Let's see. And Python is one of those languages where capitalization, lowercase, all that's very important. Even if you write the same thing, like I had single and lowercase, but the computer was picking up an error because it should have been capitalized for the function that it was for the way that I set it up with the function. So that's very important. Pay attention to that. It says name grid is not defined. Line 32. Let's see. Self.button equals grid. That makes sense. It should not be a equal sign. It should be a period that connects the view grid. Hit file save. And there we go. Sorry about that. So now that we have our program set up, let's see, test to make sure everything works good. So we'll come up with a name, say Johnny, phone number of 000-000-0000. Add the contact. It says contact added successfully. We'll hit OK. And now let's hit view contacts. And there you go. We have Johnny and it brings up the contact. I hope you guys enjoy this program. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If I offered you any value today, feel free to like my video, subscribe to my channel for more content, share this video, and leave a comment. I appreciate it. You have a good day.